Hello.
Hello, can you see me?
Yeah, I'm there.
I can't
can
see you.
you.
Yeah, push the camera button so I can see your face.
Do you have the
Let me show it on.
me?
Yeah, let me read you a portion and then I'm gonna put it on the
No
screen.
more will I stray. I'm a prisoner to the one who is in my soul. I am thankful that I'm a prisoner, and when time is over, I'll let eternity come.
The biggest fires start with a single spark. A man is shot and the world erupts into war. Change of any kind can begin anywhere, with anyone. That is the power and the terror of change.
My name is Tomsime Henry, and I was charged with murder twice.
Uganda, known as the Pearl of Africa. This country is home to a people so impacted by AIDS and civil war that the median age is 15, the lowest of any nation in the world. But in 1995, after years of military action, mass killings and famines, a constitution was adopted and democratic leaders were elected. A decade later, top judicial officials in this developing nation traveled to the United States to learn how to manage its massive docket of criminal cases. Their main concern was this: in Uganda, people accused of a crime remain imprisoned until their court cases can be judged. They may spend several years just waiting for their day in court on what is called remand. Some of them are innocent. Henry was the top student in his junior high class. His father made and sold envelopes to local pharmacies. His mother baked bread. They lived through dictators, epidemics, and the rebirth of a nation. They were building a better life for their children. But in an instant, everything changed.
I was at school. My mom rang me. Then she told me, "Henry, come home." Then mom was like, "You come and see." Took me until I reached the room, then showed me the mattress. Was like, I had kept here the money for the savings.
Every shilling his mother and father had saved for the last 2 years had been stolen by a herdsman. 3 days later, while Henry and his younger brother Joseph were at school, a mob found the herdsman.
As they were coming, many people were following. A thief, give him to us. A thief, give him to us. He must pay for what he did.
The mob beat him, then brought the herdsman back to the home he had robbed. And even though Henry's father pled with the mob to give the herdsman mercy, they beat the herdsman to death.
I was arrested, not knowing why they were arresting me. They were saying, "You are a murderer." It was a case because of the herdsman who died at home.
When the mob finally left, Henry's father took the herdsman's body and buried him behind the family's house. Even though they were in school, Henry and Joseph were arrested along with their father. Henry and Joseph were sent to a juvenile prison called Ugandan Remand Home to await their trial.
My name is Jim Gash.
I'm the director of the Global Justice Program at Pepperdine. I'm a professor of law, and I'm also the specialist advisor to the High Court of Uganda. So it means that I host Ugandan judges and diplomats in the United States. It means that I come to Uganda and speak at seminars and gatherings and conferences. It also means that I go to prisons with Ugandan lawyers, with Ugandan law students, with American law students and American lawyers, to try and give them an opportunity to see the kind of justice that they strive to give to their people. The Global Justice Program began in its current form in 2007 when two students decided they wanted to follow a guy named Bob Goff to Uganda to see if they could be useful in his efforts to assist the judiciary.
They let me serve as the honorary consul for the Republic of Uganda. Isn't that crazy? Oh, I've got some terrific letterhead. It's got like shields and spears. It says Embassy of the Republic of Uganda. I know that sounds nuts, but literally I just bought a plane ticket and then land there and make some moves. And so if justice is your thing, I headed for the courthouse. And then I started meeting these judges. And I said, well, what if we all get together? And we got every judge in the country together, and I invited a couple students to come. I said, come. And they did. And I said to us, they said, what should we do? I'm like, make friends. Instead of telling everybody that they're wrong, say, how can it be helpful? And there's a big difference between telling people they're wrong and saying, how could we go make this right? Me and you.
After two student interns presented a paper urging Uganda to consider using plea bargaining to reduce the backlog of cases, Ugandan judges came to Los Angeles for an intensive one-week study tour.
We had the opportunity to talk as judges, frankly, about the difficulty in the decision-making process, the delays in getting the cases resolved lead to despair and uncertainty amongst the public. There is no predictability as to when one can be called for trial.
The team presented a report to Ugandan Chief Justice Benjamin Udoki, known for writing the country's constitution and for being a pillar of the Ugandan judiciary.
God bless this country. The people have a positive look to life. One of the happiest countries, I think, in Africa.
Each year, a team of law students serve as judicial interns for Uganda. Working alongside Ugandan court officials, their hope is to assist the judiciary in their caseload.
Uganda is in a period of transition. We have reached a point of no return. We have to move forward.
My name is Andrew Neville, and I am 27.
My name is Jacob, and I am 24 years old.
I'm Alexandra Soltis, and I'm 23.
One of the reasons I want to study law is to make a larger impact than you can in other fields.
It's going to be emotional. It's going to be scary. I have to respect that and be willing to work really hard in an environment that I know very little about.
I want to, for the first time in a legal capacity, positively affect somebody's life.
Our students come to Uganda for 8 weeks and work as interns for members of the judiciary. But for one of those weeks, we have this intense prison project where we go into a juvenile or an adult prison and try to bring them an opportunity to get justice.
It'll be my first time in Africa. As far as my expectations go, I'm a little bit nervous.
They haven't given us too much information in general. I don't know where I'm gonna live yet. I don't know who's gonna pick me up from the airport. I don't know how much money to bring.
Their whole judicial system is so much newer and still evolving. My biggest fear is that I do not know what to expect.
Our trip will actually end 2 days before my 1-year anniversary. It's been tougher for her, and I think will be while we're gone, simply because I'm the one going away to experience new things.
Uganda has this system in place that seems like it needs those without a voice to have an advocate for them.
I'm not really going in with the sense of trying to change the world, but if I can make an impact on even a few people's lives and just help where I can.
called Magom Wilson. I'm at the rank of Assistant Commissioner of Prisons, and I'm currently the officer in charge of Upper Prison. Upper Prison is the maximum security prison we have in the country. This prison was built way back in 1920s, and it has 2 sections. We have a condemned section for people who are on death row, and the main section for people who are still on remand and those who are serving long sentences.
In the system now, we have close to 8,500 capital cases for people who have been charged with offenses that attract the death penalty. That places a lot of financial burden on the state of Uganda. And the current level of funding for the judiciary, we can only hear 1,280 cases.
The people who are on death row dress in white. These ones who are on remand put on yellow. Now, those ones who are lifers, who are serving over 30 years, are the ones who are putting on orange.
Why are there many waiting on remand? That is, I think they call it the $1 million question. A lot of people actually are in prison, but they are willing to take responsibility for their crimes. They are willing to plead guilty. The greatest problem in almost all prisons is overcrowding.
This prison was built to hold 600 inmates. But as of this morning, we unlocked 3,000 inmates.
It is very difficult to keep track of the files in our system. You'll find some places where files are on the floor, on the tables. Records management is definitely a very big problem.
The court process is a little bit slow. People take long on remand.
It makes it very difficult for them, one, to have certainty for hearings, but secondly, for the safety and integrity of their records. Because today you'll come and find a file, tomorrow it might be misplaced. So we have a big problem of misplaced files. We have a big problem of files that lose position because we don't have a good system.
They are not yet convicted prisoners. That should not be our responsibility as prisoners. Prisoners, we should have people who have been convicted and given a term. I take about 1,100 inmates to courts every day all over the country.
One, we have a problem of the sleeping space. The prisoners are sleeping like sardines. So you find that cooking for 3,000 is a challenge. To meet their medical requirements is a challenge.
Once we reach ground level with the backlog, we'll be able to move forward well. We can reach that point where we have stopped backlog from accumulating and we deal with fresh cases.
The burden comes on the shoulders of the prison. Unlike courts, who keep files, for us we keep human beings. And human beings definitely do complain, but files don't complain. The categories of prisoners who are here are those who have committed very serious offenses. These offenses, among others, include acts of rape, acts of murder, acts of aggravated robberies, aggravated defilement, treason, terrorism, and other cases that follow that category.
We have no idea what any of these prisoners have done, and so we're just interviewing them blind, pretty much. We don't have their indictments or any of the trial records or anything. Hopefully we'll get that tonight.
Seems like they at least have informed the prisoners that someone would be coming to talk with them.
And we just got broken up into our teams, waiting to still find out who our Ugandan advocate will be. Yeah, just between us, it's basically 2 gates right now, and the prison itself, where all the prisoners are. So there's really going to be no separation. It's just jumping in there and trying to see if we can help these prisoners.
American law students and American lawyers are paired with a Ugandan lawyer and a Ugandan law student before meeting the prisoners. Interviewing over 100 prisoners for the first time, they hope to move the cases forward toward resolution through a court trial or an agreement reached outside of court called a plea bargain. The law students explain to the prisoners that the team has come to give them a voice and provide them with an opportunity in smaller groups to finally tell their story to someone who will help them.
Was it his own knife that he used?
It's kind of a complicated case because he's being charged with murder of his 2-month-old daughter.
There's a murder of a wife, but it seems that there was a heat of passion involved.
This is aggravated defilement. The victim was his daughter, 16 years old.
He knows he did it, but he is saying that a witch doctor cast a spell on him, so he was unconscious the whole time, so he's not remembering, and the only thing he remembers is waking up and then seeing the evidence of the murder.
We have a question. Could we ask him more about the clan conflict and
so he reached into his toolbox and grabbed for something to defend himself, and he got a screwdriver and hit the guy in the neck.
According to the accused here, he actually did not mean to even hit the wife. He was trying to stab the man in the hand.
A lot of these things you're hearing about one of the worst days of somebody's life, and they're taking you through it from when they got up to when they went to bed, and it's some of it's tough.
During Henry's time at Ihungu, much changed. He was elected Katikiro, which meant that he was the prime minister of the internal prison government. But he was under the authority of the matron, Rose, who ran Ihungu. Henry was losing faith that he would ever leave the remand home. After Henry had been in prison for almost 18 months, Bob Goff, president of Restore International, came to Ihungu.
We went to Masindi, which is a region in Uganda, and I asked a high court judge, is there a remand home nearby? We drove out a long way and got to this dilapidated building, and we went inside and found all these young men that had been inside this place with a plastic bucket, in the back, and they let them out that door just a little bit of time each day. And I'm like, this is nuts. Like, there's no way this should be going on. And so I asked this high court judge, could we get involved and bring these cases to trial?
A month after Bob Goff's initial visit to Ihungu, a young prisoner arrived. Rose was illegally hiring out the prisoners to local farmers, and although he had asthma, the matron sent the young prisoner to the work fields. When he fell behind the others, she ordered Henry to strike him on the buttocks with a stick.
Because I was beating him unwillingly, I showed sympathy. I was not really beating him hard. Then after that, she ordered me to bury him alive. So for me, I didn't really comply with that. So she ordered the two to bury him between the potato hips, but the head was left outside.
After 15 minutes of being buried up to his neck, the boy was uncovered and resumed working. The following afternoon, while the other boys worked, the young prisoner tried to escape, and Rose ordered him to be punished again, this time by 4 inmates.
She ordered them to get sticks, 10 strokes. So in total, they were 40 strokes.
Later that day, Henry found the prisoner lying on a mat. He was dead. Shortly afterward, Rose was charged with murder, and because Henry was Katikiro, he was also charged, once again, with murder.
By then, I felt like God has given up with me. If really I have been praying for God to help me in the first case, but instead another case has piled up. Now, is really God hearing my prayers? I think not. The sentence in Uganda for murder, it can be 25 years. So I thought it was going to be over 50 years. First murder and second murder. I told my mom not to come and visit me anymore. I told her no more coming to visit me because I'm no longer really going to be released.
This is our playground. These are goalposts.
A few months after Bob Goff's visit, he met Jim and told him about the kids on remand at Uhungu.
We are the ones.
Soon after, in January of 2010, Jim, along with a small team of lawyers, flew to Uganda. There, Jim met Henry for the first time. Jim and the other lawyers spent a week at Uhungu preparing cases for the 21 juvenile inmates for trial, including both murder cases against Henry.
Over the course of the weeks following our return to the United States, these cases started to move forward, and these kids got court dates, these kids got released. Most of them were released within several weeks of the time of us leaving.
When the case against Henry, Joseph, and their father went to court, all charges were dropped because there was no evidence against them. Henry's brother and father were immediately released, but Henry remained on remand. In April of 2010, the trial against Henry and Rose began.
When the trial came for the second murder charge, there was one lawyer representing both Rose and Henry. That lawyer decided that the case that the defense put on would defend Rose and blame Henry. None of the juveniles who would have testified that Henry had nothing to do with these 40 strokes were called to the stand. No evidence was put on in Henry's favor.
Henry was not allowed to testify. At the end of the trial, both Rose and Henry were convicted of murder.
I felt really out of myself. I felt as if I was dead. I felt my heart was going off. I lost hope, really.
The day after Henry was convicted, I got on a plane and flew back to Uganda. For the next 3 days, I sat with him and worked on a pre-sentence report to be given to the judge to help the judge decide what the appropriate sentence was. A couple weeks later, Henry was brought before a magistrate judge for final sentencing. The judge reviewed the pre-sentence report and ultimately sentenced him to 1 year of probation and allowed him to go home.
Bob Goff admitted Henry and his brother Joseph into his school in northern Uganda. And although Henry was back in school, he still had a murder conviction on his record.
In an ideal world, we'd have the DPP case files, which would tell us what evidence the prosecution has. So right now, it's like a big poker game because we're putting these stories together or whatever that, you know, that this is how we should negotiate as a defense, but we have no clue what the prosecution's holding.
My group's fortunate. We have about 7 actual DPP records to look at. So now I'm comparing those to the statements that we recorded from the individuals accused of these crimes. But I know some groups don't have any files, so the disparity of work is going to be a little bit interesting.
You guys have finished the interviews. This morning, Andrew Kauka met with the head clerk for the DPP and lit a fire. We need more files. And so they're in the process of gathering them. We don't know how many are there, but we're only going to send a small amount of you over there we need to copy files. Our role is to assist them in trying to refine and improve their system. And in the end, it's going to be an imperfect process now and in the future, but it's going to be a whole lot better than that.
It's a lot of work. And it's slow because, okay, right now we have, how many files did he say? 27. 27, and that's been 3 days we've been searching for files. The thing here is that the police don't have cameras, so to take a picture of the scene of the crime or the evidence, they actually hand draw it. It's fascinating. They draw in like where they found whatever they killed with. So we're scanning with our iPhones, and we are putting it on the computer on the internet, and then we're giving it to people to read the files from the computer at the hotel.
When you see these people coming up and just actually offering the guilt, like look, here's what I did, here's how I did it, and I just want to get to court, and I want to start serving my time. It's like, I deserve this time, just please help me with that sentence the best you can, but just their biggest step is get me to court. Like, I've been sitting here for 3 years now, like, I want to get to court.
Even the guilty have not had access to a lawyer, they haven't had access to the evidence against them, they haven't had access to the court, so they're just waiting for someone to do something. And so even if they have committed these horrendous crimes, they deserve the opportunity to have those presented in court and to have their cases moved.
In January of 2012, Jim and his family moved to Uganda for 6 months at the request of the Ugandan judiciary, so Jim could work with court and prison officials to help ensure no other Henrys would be forgotten by the system. Soon after, a new system of expediting juvenile cases is adopted and utilized by juvenile remand homes throughout Uganda.
So we talk every week on the phone.
Yeah.
We call each other. It used to be every Tuesday, and then it changed to Thursdays and different times, but every single week. And how do we end our calls? Before we hang up?
Yeah, we say I love you to each other, and we mean it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's been an interesting ride, and Henry's case is the one that really got the whole thing started. In March of 2013, I was given special permission by the Chief Justice of Uganda to actually represent Henry in court and argue his appeal before the Ugandan Court of Appeals. And we're going to be heading over to the court in a few minutes, but we're going to do one last practice round.
Jim works tirelessly to represent Henry on his appeal, and in doing so, he becomes the first American ever allowed to appear as an advocate in Ugandan court.
What we're looking for is a complete exoneration of him. He has already served the 1 year of probation. He's already served his sentence. But we really want this to be completely over and have his name fully and finally cleared from any wrongdoing. That's critically important to both of us, and we're still waiting.
Justice is ensuring everyone has access and an opportunity to be heard. Whether they're rich, they're poor, whomever they are, they can come in and get a fair shake.
The administration of justice is that justice should be taken nearer to the people. Administration of justice is about fairness, not about punishment per se.
There are so many people on remand. We are now in the region of 8,500 for the committed remands. Plea bargaining comes in to clear all such cases. When they are facing murder charge, they are reluctant to plead guilty. Once they know it's a manslaughter, which will not attract a capital punishment, they are motivated to come out and plead guilty.
So you don't have to worry about it.
This isn't very conducive to hibernating. I've been sick the whole time, so it's okay.
This isn't very conducive to sleeping. It is not conducive to sleeping 15 hours.
I mean, these guys have been forgotten. They have one piece of paper. A lot of them don't even have it, and they've just been literally forgotten by the system.
You've seen all the indictments. None of them have dates for the court date. They say like on such and such, and it's just blank spaces.
I checked my email this morning, and then I couldn't even get out of bed. I just laid there for another hour and a half, just thinking, what are we even doing here? Like, this is miserable. And I know you're right. I know you are. Justice needs to be served to everybody, but I'll be frank with you, like that broke me a little bit.
Not every story is Henry. Some stories are, and we want to fight for those stories. But not every story is. But I still think it's worth it.
It breaks my heart in the sense that we can't do more because there is potential, but we're leaving.
You have to
look at the big picture of like, we are trying to like implement the plea bargaining system, and like in the end of things, hopefully it does just at least get these somewhat, at least half of them, terrible people into their sentence so they can serve the sentence and then hopefully be rehabilitated and get out.
I think that's the confusing thing about plea bargaining. We're not condoning what they're doing. We're just making sure that they're serving their sentence and nothing more.
The judiciary was beginning on a journey that would wind its way to today when we have this first national conference.
In the summer of 2015, Uganda held its first national plea bargaining conference. Jim assembled a team of judges, prosecutors, defense lawyers, and professors to assist and encourage the Ugandans in their implementation and refinement of plea bargaining as a pillar of their criminal justice system. Ugandans and Americans shared ideas and conducted mock plea negotiation sessions to aid prosecutors, defense lawyers, and judges in their efforts to fully implement an effective plea bargaining system.
If we never do anything which has never been done before, we shall never get anywhere. The law will stand still, but the rest of the world goes on, and that will be bad for both of us.
Do what we can to assist Uganda in charting its own course, figuring out what sort of opportunities it could borrow from other jurisdictions, shape them into the unique culture and judicial system here, and create a system that works best for Ugandans.
We must, however, always be cautious that the world around us is moving, and the judiciaries and the bar must adapt in order to remain relevant. I am personally convinced that plea bargaining will be the most significant reform of our criminal justice system since independence.
I'm called Biakatonda Rashid. I've been in prison for 3 years. I spent on remand 2 years and 9 months. Because on my charge, the sentencing guideline was saying death if I was guilty. I had to take that chance for me to save my life so that I can go back and look after my daughter, because I have only one daughter. I thank pre-bargain program because we succeeded and we were given at least a fair sentence.
While many of the prisoners the students assisted are serving out their plea bargain sentences, some of them have been released and are now back at home with their families. Christine was arrested on murder charges and waited years for a trial. Under the new plea bargaining system, she agreed to a manslaughter charge. Credited with the time she spent on remand, Christine was released and reunited with her daughter. She is now serving as an associate pastor at a church outside of Kampala.
With plea bargaining, you're able to hear cases at 1/5 of the cost of hearing a case through the adversarial system. In the last 4 to 6 months that we have piloted the plea bargaining program, we have processed more than 1,000 cases.
The plea bargaining process brings hope to many actors in the criminal justice system. First and foremost, the accused persons, because they are able to bargain sentences. It also helps the victims, because their voice in the criminal justice system is now taking root. Their views are sought on the sentence. So it is a win-win situation. All of us in plea bargain emerge out as winners.
When the prison project began, we had 168 cases that we were working on. And after we left, the Ugandans took over the process and brought every single one of those cases through the process of plea bargaining.
It's pretty incredible what can be done if you have the courage to actually do something.
It's not something you can just put a Band-Aid on. It's not something that you can just send money to them and hope that it'll fix it.
They know this is a problem. They know their jails are overcrowded. And they were open to ideas like, how can we fix this?
You can recognize that it's a problem, but it's another thing to care enough to want to do something about it. And the leaders in Uganda saw that and wanted to act on it.
10 people can't fix the world, but I mean, if enough people do enough things, then things can change.
Hello, are you there?
Hello.
Hello, can you see me?
Yeah, I'm there.
I can't see you. Yeah, push the camera button so I can see your face. So we got the ruling from the court. Let me read the portion that is the most important part. He says, it says, "We therefore find that it was not possible in the circumstances of this case for the same advocate to have ably and fairly represented both the appellant and the co-accused, Rose and Parway, without causing prejudice to the case of one of them. On that account, we hereby quash the conviction and set aside the sentence imposed upon the appellant by the Children's Court in Cindy. The court decided that the conviction was in violation of the Constitution, and therefore it has been quashed and nullified. It's over. You won."
Praise be to God. Yeah, it has been perfect actually. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you a great deal.
You're welcome. I had a very good client to represent, someone who was innocent and it needed to be proven innocent, and I'm glad we had the opportunity to work together to make that happen. Yeah.
I've been just waiting, praying.
Two things we've gotten used to doing since we met each other, huh? So there will be no new trial.
Yeah.
It's all over. It's now over. There's no appeal to the Supreme Court. You are a free man. You are exonerated. All of the charges against you have been dropped and dismissed. It's much, much bigger than one person. It's much bigger than one case. This is a transformation that the Ugandans are engaging in that will live long after Henry, will live long after me. And there are others who are picking up the torch and walking ahead. And most of those people are Ugandans, and it's a privilege to walk with them.
If we pull alongside of them and say, this is how you do it, that's different than saying, let's go do this together. This big idea of with, not just for each other remotely, but with each other actually.
Henry went back to visit Ihungu, the place where he was held prisoner for nearly 2 years. There, he met the current Katikiro and talked with the inmates. He wanted them to understand that although hope can seem naive, things do change. And for these inmates, and the thousands like them sitting in prisons across Uganda, one day soon, they too will have their day in court. Today, Henry is a medical student.
My name is Musimi Henry, and I will be a doctor.